Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Logan LaPierre. I'm the program manager with the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know we have Q&A here in Zoom available. So again, if there's a time throughout the presentation where you have a question, feel free to throw that in the Q&A box or the chat. If you're on Facebook, use the comment section, and we will address those at the conclusion of Haley's presentation. And if you have any, after this presentation's wrapped up, sorry, we will have a recording on our website as well as our YouTube page and Facebook. So you're welcome to go back and revisit the presentation at a later time as well. So with that, I'm just going to turn things over to Rebecca Dobbs with STCU.
Thanks, Logan. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Haley today. Haley is a family nurse practitioner, and she's a board certified ARNP. She has extensive experience in family practice and pediatrics and holds a master's degree in nursing, advanced family practice from Gonzaga, go Zags, by the way, and also a bachelor's in biology from Central. She's passionate about treating each patient individually with a strong emphasis in lifestyle medicine as the forefront of one's health. And of course, she's an avid outdoor enthusiast, has completed 2 marathons, which is very impressive. And she's also done the Seattle to Portland bike ride, also very impressive. Her hobbies also include spending time with her family, cooking, and reading. So welcome to Haley. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. So let's get started. Share my screen here. So Logan, I'm trying to share my screen and it's not allowing me to do that.
Oh, let me. So it appears it has the function available. Sorry, everyone, we're having some technical issues. Let me see if there is another option here. Let's see. Haley, would you be able to send me your presentation and I can go ahead and give it a shot on my end?
Sure.
Okay. Perfect opportunity for you guys to grab coffee or water.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, I sent you that. Did you get it?
I'm just waiting for it to come through. Email is always fast when you don't need it to be fast, and it's slow when you need it to be fast.
Should I send it again?
I think it might just, if it's a larger file, that could be what's causing it to be
Oh.
delayed.
I turned off my firewall thinking maybe that might be why.
When you click the share screen button, what is it? Does it give you a message or anything?
My security and privacy.
I see. Okay. All right. I'm just pulling it up right now, so just a few more seconds. All right, let's see if I can do this. And then Haley, when you're ready for the next slide, just let me know and I'll be behind the scenes here. Hopefully everyone can see that.
So sorry for that delay. So yes, my name is Haley Selleck. I'm a nurse practitioner at Empowered Health, and we are a precision medicine clinic. And I'm going to be talking about that at the end of my presentation. So we'll talk more about that. Go ahead, Logan. So today we're going to be talking about insulin. What is insulin resistance? How does insulin affect our mood? What to eat in regards to insulin? We're going to talk about fats, proteins, carbohydrates, the macronutrients, fiber, exercise, and then when to eat, including intermittent fasting. And last, we'll talk about precision medicine. So insulin is the driving hormone in weight retention, and it's the fundamental hormone for storage of fat and sugar. It's the key regulator of energy metabolism and facilitates the uptake of glucose into the cells for energy. When we eat, insulin increases and the body stores the energy as glycogen and fat. When we are fasting, insulin is driven down and our body uses that stored energy. Our body set weight is tightly regulated by the hypothalamus and driven by insulin. In other words, weight retention is hormonal, not only a caloric imbalance. Weight gain is not purely a caloric imbalance, but purely hormone or insulin. So all of these are key factors and they go hand in hand. Go ahead, Logan. So I have young children, so there's a few flares in here that, yes, insulin resistance is just everywhere. So what is insulin resistance? The next slide. So it defines a person's tolerance to glucose. As the insulin levels rise, the cells can become resistant and alter the signaling that leads to less glucose uptake and a further elevation of glucose, which further perpetuates the cycle. Insulin acts as the key that no longer fits into a lock, the receptor on glucose. When this happens, the insulin levels rise and the glucose levels rise, leading to every downstream disease, including diabetes, of course, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver disease, inflammation, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, migraines, infertility, dementia, expediting the aging process, and on and on. Just to let that sink in a little bit, this is so very important. If the insulin levels stay high, the body set weight also stays high. Food is the biggest driver of death in the world, despite our advanced science and medical care. 88% of all US adults are considered metabolically unfit or may have metabolic syndrome, which is what this is called. The function of insulin is the most of insulin resistance is the most prevalent disorder, and it's often not diagnosed. So why are we not an insulin-centric society? Why are we a glucose-centric paradigm? This is due to really just historical viewpoints. Nothing happens fast in medicine. And fasting glucose elevation is really a late stage in detection of this. So why, again, do we just measure glucose? Well, it is easier to measure than insulin and provider preference. So what should be checked? A simple test, a fasting insulin test. It's the measure of your insulin levels unaffected by a recent meal and detects insulin resistance long before a fasting glucose test does. It can detect early signs of metabolic dysfunction while it can be reversed. Let me give you an example of this with some common labs. A person usually has a fasting glucose and sometimes a hemoglobin A1C drawn, which hemoglobin A1C is a test that is your average of glucose over 3 months' time. So the fasting glucose is normal, and often the hemoglobin A1C is normal as well. However, when the fasting insulin is checked and it is actually very high. So what is happening here? Well, this is that our body is really good at trying to maintain homeostasis, and it's kicking out lots of insulin to compensate for the elevated glucose. So when we check this level, it is so very high. However, it can be reversed. And insulin resistance is actually our body's mechanism for defense, and it prevents these glucose levels and our insulin from spiking and dropping us actually too low. So insulin and glucose affect our mood and contribute to fatigue. It's often accompanied by post-meal fatigue, mood swings, sugar cravings, and visceral storage of fat or abdominal fat. These implications are on our workplace and just overall in our mood. And this is just a classic sign of some swings of elevated glucose and insulin. So fluctuations in blood sugar, they impact our mood, focus, and mental processing. And every cell is affected in insulin resistance, even our brain cells. Next slide. So what causes insulin resistance? Well, clearly elevated insulin. Elevated stress hormones is another key player here, such as cortisol. Elevated inflammatory markers, this is kind of this vicious cycle. Diets rich in refined fats and processed fats and refined carbohydrates. Some nutrient and vitamin deficiencies can also cause insulin resistance. So how do we prevent and how do we restore insulin resistance if we have it? First of all, detection is key. But two concepts are key here to include, which are pretty simple actually, but this idea of what to eat and when. So number one is removing as much processed sugar is just so very important. This can be done by just simply removing processed and packaged foods. The majority of our packaged foods contain added sugars, and removing snacks is another key component. The goal is 90% of the time striving to eat whole, clean, real foods, and 10% of the time, we are human. We have to splurge a little bit. Next is to reduce refined grains and remove as much white flours as possible. So whole grains are a better option along with stone mill grinding. So next is increasing natural fats and increasing fiber. And we're going to talk more about these key items in more detail in regard to the macronutrients, including fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So next is talking about fats. So fats, it's often got a bad rap, right? Do we eat it? Do we not? Well, it's actually very important to pick the most natural unprocessed fats as much as possible. So when, really little contribution of fat spikes insulin here. So trying to pick things that are healthy fats. So avocado oil, switching from, canola, vegetable oil to a healthier option, avocado, olive oils in cooking. Coconut is also another good choice. Nuts are a few examples of some healthier fats. And next is protein. So very important to optimize this macronutrient while picking options that are wild sources and grass-fed rather than corn-fed as much as possible. Dairy has the largest potential to spike the insulin, although these do clearly contribute to satiety, which is a very good thing. It's going to keep you fuller longer. So portion control is key here. It's so much easier to eat larger quantities of meats rather than dairy. So portion control is really important. And then really striving for 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day. And some of these fluctuations can vary depending on the source and the person. Next is, again, the young kid flair here, but moving into our carbohydrates. So another very important macronutrient, but it does have the most potential for spiking the insulin. Striving to get the majority of carbohydrates from vegetables is really very important, and trying to pair it with a protein and fat. The next best sources of unprocessed carbohydrates would obviously be fruits. I did want to mention just that artificial sweeteners are often used, thinking that, it's a better option, it's healthier for you, but actually they trick your metabolism into thinking sugar is on the way, and it causes your body to pump out more insulin, which you then lay down more abdominal fat. And it also, they can leave you feeling hungry and have more cravings for sugars and starches. So, some of they're not all proven equal, and some are better than others, but I'm really just trying to avoid that. And just a question would be, have you ever heard of somebody losing weight while drinking excess amounts of Diet Pepsi? And I would really highly think no. Next is talking about fiber. So this is very important anti-nutrient. So this has the ability to reduce absorption and digestion, and the fiber really subtracts rather than adds. So soluble fiber reduces carbohydrate absorption, which in turn reduces your glucose and insulin levels. It's no coincidence that virtually all plant foods in their natural unrefined state contain fiber. The high amount of processing is really actually to blame for removing the protective effects from much of our foods. Next is talking about exercise. So exercise is so very important for reversing insulin resistance. It makes our cells more sensitive to insulin, clearly. So the goal here would be to get 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardiovascular exercise per week. This equates to about 30 minutes per day, along with strength training, yoga, and stretching. Next is when to eat. So we talked a lot about what to eat, and so now when to eat. So this is really breaking that insulin resistance cycle. We need very important to have periods of low insulin levels. And so in ways to do this is through fasting. So there are many different types of fasting that can provide really good benefits, which can make it much more approachable than you really might think. So the most basic kind of fast is the break between dinner and breakfast. It's breakfast, right? Breaking your fast. This type falls into our natural circadian rhythm of when the sun is up and down, and it can be very good and very simple to do. Intermittent fasting can describe multiple timetables for eating. So a simple way would be to extend the fast overnight to approximately 16 hours, maybe just several days even per week. You can really get some good benefits from that. Other approaches could be a 24-hour fast or time-restricted eating when you only eat within a certain hour eating window, often 6 to 8 hours or 8 to 10 hours. The biggest thing with fasting is when you do eat, you still need to eat well. So fasting and then binging on ice cream is really not the goal here. So fasting is not for everyone. Those are the history of eating disorders. If you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or currently with diabetes, you really should talk with your provider before fasting or extending long periods of fast. It doesn't necessarily mean you might not be able to do this, but it's important to make sure that your provider is aware. So fasting helps with weight loss. It reduces your insulin levels, your blood pressure. It improves insulin sensitivity, which reduces the risk of diabetes. It helps the brain to function better by clearing out dangerous proteins, this process called autophagy. And it's benefiting the neurons that really protect memory and learning. And a lot of research has really been focused around this in the last 5 to 10 years. So fasting, if you've never done it before, I would highly recommend just starting, with the overnight fast and listening to your body. If you're really super hungry, then you should eat. And, this concept of intuitive eating is very important. So really trying to get to those hunger and satiety cues is very important. And you do get past the hangries. So there can be other driving factors here that our body is holding on to insulin or driving some of this insulin resistance, and cortisol is a really important thing. So we can try to optimize our foods and time it with when we're eating, but if we are just stressed and overworked and not sleeping well, our stress hormone, our cortisol levels rise, and this is our fight or flight response. So this is also going to drive insulin levels up. And even if you're eating super healthy, this can really be the opposite effect. So I think we all can benefit from stress reduction, mindfulness, meditation, even through deep breathing exercises, really trying to focus on good sleep hygiene and striving for 8 to 9 hours of restorative sleep per night. The other driving factor here could be nutrient or vitamin deficiencies. So, making sure that you have good B vitamins and that you're not deficient in vitamin D is another important variable to rule out. So key points here is that weight gain and retention is not purely caloric imbalance. It's not purely hormone or insulin, but all of these are key players. Insulin resistance is happening in all of our cells, even our brain cells. And like I said, so much evidence and research is pointing to the fact that so many aging comorbidities that are happening, we're seeing dementia and all these things can be because of insulin resistance. And often not detected until these late stages. And so in earlier stages, this reversal process can happen. So determining if you have insulin resistance is really so very important, and trying to get to the root cause is also so very important. So why precision medicine? Well, this is really the 21st century medicine. And this is taking a very preventative, proactive, personal, comprehensive approach to medicine. So at Empowered Health, we focus on precision medicine and really creating individual health action plans for each individual patient. We do bring in some population-based medicine and help guide treatment that way. But it is so important to individualize our care because we are all unique individuals here. And so we use this with a very comprehensive lab panel that's including these insulin, inflammatory markers, these micronutrients, which are all so important for metabolic health and often not checked. So the last is that we really strive to get to the root cause. What is making you unwell? What is causing this fatigue? Could this be insulin resistance? Is it cortisol? And really focusing on these key components and data driven in that we utilize different tools and lab data to pull in all of this information and really try to get a better path moving forward for patients. And the need is so imperative right now with just, the work, everybody is feeling it. The pandemic and the workforce we're just all tired, and, to make sure that we find out why is really important so that we can move on and take back our life. Any questions?
All right. Hopefully, there we go. Hopefully I didn't race you through any of your slides.
No,
I was trying to take the cue. I was wondering, you were talking about this goes back to the 90-10 rule on snacking. I think a lot of people, especially people behind a desk all day, like to probably snack as they work. So what do you say, like how would you recommend to break a habit like that?
Yeah, it is really important. I think it's not, I think trying to make changes is so important that it doesn't have to be all or none. So making small changes is a really key start. The idea with the snack is just that, you're trying to have these periods of lower insulin levels. And if we just constantly are driving the insulin up and driving it up, then, and snacks can tend to sometimes do that. Obviously, it depends on the snack. So there are, trying to pick a snack that is a nut or, that's more protein based or fat even, that's not processed is a good start. Fruits, vegetables, all of those things would be better than something that's coming out of a package with a barcode.
So no party size bags of Lay's potato chips. Lisa is asking, she's looking for a vitamin regimen, but she's not sure where to begin. Do you have any tips for her?
Yeah, so, I think that it is really hard to tweeze out. The internet has so many, different supplements. I think sometimes it's hard to know, if the supplement is going to be good or not. And obviously it's not regulated by our Food and Drug Administration. So trying to pick a medical grade supplement is obviously best, but I think really working with a provider that is going to, sort of know, well, what are some of the reasons, what are you trying to use the supplement for, and see how it's going to, play. And then I think if you're finding that you're not noticing any sort of benefit, then probably stop. But, we don't know how all of the supplements can interact either. And, but depending on, what the focus is or what the supplement is for, I think would definitely drive some of that. But we do focus on a lot of different interventions for patients here at Empowered Health, including, supplement regimens that are really going to help to optimize different items. But I think really focusing on cleaning up diet is a really good start.
Perfect, thank you. And then another question, going back to the stress relief and the exercise. A lot of people like things to happen right away. So do you know of any maybe apps or ways people can start that journey of stress relief?
Yeah, so Calm is an app that is for meditation and mindfulness that several patients have said that works well. There's so many different tracking apps if you're talking about food tracking and that sort of thing. Stress management, a lot of different devices to wear, a watch, a ring. Some of those I know can track that and track your sleep. Some of that data can be really beneficial for people to see what are some of the different deep stages of your sleep and how, those are the more restorative phases. So tracking some of that can be good. Sometimes people don't respond well to that and it causes more stress. Well, how did I sleep? And am I sleeping well? But I think, some of it can be really insightful to help with that. But yeah, I think starting small and just making small changes and setting small goals for yourself is really important.
I have to say, I'm not endorsing this, but I also use Calm and it works great. So I definitely recommend it. Heidi is asking, She says, I've seen a lot of information around fasting based on your age or blood type. What are your recommendations?
That's a great question. So there really is so much information about this. And I think we're really at the tip of the iceberg of all of the fasting that's coming to fruition. But the blood type items, I haven't seen a lot of good solid data to support, but boy, a lot of testimonials, a lot of people coming forward saying, they benefit from these types of foods. And I know that, some different genetic testing is really up and coming with pairing our DNA with how we respond to foods and stress and just all sorts of things. So yeah, I think as far as though starting with a fast, I mean, keeping it simple. And if you're a person that might snack or splurge after 6 p.m. starting your fast after you eat dinner, and then trying to keep it until 6 in the morning or 7 or 8, and really listening to your body is a good place to start. But you are correct. There is a lot of data information that's coming up with age and our blood types, but I don't have a lot to attest to say that it's proven just yet, but a lot of testimonial.
Perfect, thank you. Another question, and this I think kind of goes similar maybe to the 90-10 rule and no snacking. For individuals who eat late, I know you talked about fasting after dinner until breakfast. What about individuals who eat late? How would you recommend maybe they break that cycle to accommodate that?
Yeah, it can be, trying to maybe eat a smaller meal if you did do a larger lunch perhaps, and then maybe a smaller meal at dinner. And then trying to extend your fast longer into the morning if you can. Now, sometimes you can even be fasting and using bone broth. Yes, the next question asking about bone broth. Even coffee technically wouldn't break your fast in the morning. And even some people would say that you could put a small amount of an almond milk or something in your coffee and that still wouldn't break your fast. Tea does not break fast either. Obviously, you should drink lots of water during this time period too. Really staying hydrated is really key. But yeah, bone broth can extend that fast even further. And a lot of people can get some good benefits, and that does not spike your insulin is the reason. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you. So what I'm hearing is by drinking coffee, I'm also drinking water. Just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think those were all the questions we had. So I want to say thank you. I think it was a great topic, especially now that we're moving into spring and summer. So I really appreciate your time. And to everyone who was here with us today, we'll have this recording posted so you can go back and revisit it. I would definitely recommend you check out Calm or any other apps that are available, and check out Empowered Health as well. They have some really great resources available. So thank you to everyone. Before I let you all go, just a reminder, our next Ask the Experts will be April 28th. We'll be talking about the Great Resignation and trends and forecasts coming up. So just keep your eyes posted for that. And again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Haley, for your time and your presentation today.